Hey guys, welcome back to the 7-Day Hustle Podcast. My name is Kyle Ashone, and we have brought back my buddy Heath to finish the last episode. So we had a really good conversation we were getting into, and for time's sake, we are finishing it now. So let's just jump right in and pick up where we left off. Heath, we were talking about kind of your transition from ministry to ministry, inside the...
Why are you smiling?
Just because,
transitions.
Yeah, play on words, It was go back and listen to the last episode if you want to know what I'm talking about. But from a church setting, to a business setting. Your business specifically is painting, service-based business. And it doesn't really matter. The point is it's a transition of professions, and with a massive amount of faith involved. And so to pick up where we left off, you had just said, we were talking about like kind of a mindset inside the church community as a whole. I don't, not trying to pick on any one specific place, but you had said the words that in some cases we can almost glorify suffering, and that stuck out to me. And then after that, you had mentioned that, like, because we're Christians, there's almost a call and a duty to do more.
Yeah.
Does that jog your memory of where we left off?
Yeah. No, yeah, and I think what I meant too is, like, I am wholeheartedly for suffering for Christ, if that's what's called. There's a lot of people around the world that have to do that anyways. I think sometimes as the American church, we suffer when we don't have to. And I think it's more due to laziness than anything. Like, if I could go back, and I mean, I was like, when I was part-time ministry, and then sometimes that's full-time hours.
Right.
You have to look at it like, okay, how much money am I bringing in to support myself? And I think a lot of people in those circumstances are like, I'm suffering for Christ because, I'm not making a lot of money, or I'm doing these things, stepping out in faith, which is all great. But I think also behind that is also, but you could be working another job to make this work.
Yeah.
Like, I look at it now and I'm like, oh, I could do my business and it be a part-time business and do ministry at the same time in that same capacity. So
Yeah.
I think it's a mix. And I think sometimes we glorify being like, oh, I don't have a ton of money, but because I'm serving the church, it's like, that's great. And maybe that's what you have to do. But I think there's a lot of times it's a laziness behind it. And it's like, you can do both well.
I agree. And that's something that I really started to challenge and struggle with kind of as a whole, because when I got into the personal development space, that came from like, all right, my business now has gotten beyond my capabilities, and I have to become more and learn more to do more.
Yeah.
The alternative is I just accept complacency and I don't problem solve forward. I just am accepting of the issues and the dysfunction, and it is what it is. And so, a very popular parable is that of the talents. And, vineyard owner, basically, long story short, vineyard owner goes on a vacation. He has 3 managers, essentially. He says, gives 3 to 1, 2 to the second, 1 to the third, whatever unit that is, right? The first one, he says, I'm going on vacation. I'm giving you guys this investment that is mine. When I come back, I expect you to grow it, right? The first one, whatever he did with what he was given, he grew it 3 or 4 times over. The second one grew it double over. And the third one basically said, well, I didn't do anything with what you gave me. I just kind of didn't risk it. So here's your investment back. And the only person that was criticized was the one that didn't even try. And that really stuck with me a lot. And so then through this, you start to learn different traits and different, you start learning again, right? And then how to put it into your business. And so once you start to learn these things, it becomes very simple and you start to understand new patterns. And then I looked back at the church and I'm like, why is it that the professional space understands how to do things efficiently and effectively, but when it comes into the church, there's it's heard often, well, it's not about the numbers, or well, we're just going to let God provide. And so much like what you're saying, yes, there is a space for that, and we have to, like, God can't be absent from our movements. But that's not an excuse for us to not move because we're always waiting on God. And um honestly, I think that's where Satan can kind of get a foothold in us. And it's like, well, if I can convince him, them, her, whatever, to be okay with less than what God has available to them, then technically I win. Like, they will experience less of God's glory versus being able to say, like, I never thought that I would experience X, Y, and whatever it is. Those things come from God, because understanding who God is that of abundance. And he gives us many times to, there's lots of way. I've said often, like, Jesus was the best salesman because he was authentic, right? Like, if you want to learn how to run a legitimate business, like, look at the life of Christ on earth. he was authentic and he was real with people.
Yeah.
And so it just, for me, it has been one of those frustrating things.
Mhm.
And so call it a little bit of a validation maybe, but like, it's just refreshing and encouraging to hear it coming from yourself and somebody that I respect. It's like, no, we actually have there's a calling to be better. And this whole thing of, like, just, I think it gets referred to, like, the book of Job, right? God allows Satan to take everything away from him. And so there's a sense of, like, well, we all have to identify with Job because to want more is greed. No, I don't really think that that's how it works. We're called to be obedient.
Yeah.
And inside the obedience, like, you have to look at the fruits of your effort. What is it producing? And that was a big one for me, is like, what is it that I'm producing? Is it productive? Is it fruitful? Or am I working and nurturing a tree that doesn't actually really produce anything? Because now I'm just wasting my time.
Yeah.
So I talked a lot. I would like to, I don't want to talk a lot.
Hey, dude, it's your podcast, whatever you want.
Yeah, but
No, I think something that I thought about as you were going on your Kyle rant, if you
yeah,
will.
I do
No, just
I do
kidding.
that.
No, you're good, dude. Um, no, I think I thought about too that nobody wants to say this, but the church is a business.
Mhm,
It's a nonprofit, and on its worst day, it should function like a good business. Now, the
mhm,
church is a lot more than that. It's a ministry, but I think so many times it's used to, like, this isn't a business, but that's used as an excuse to not do some basic business practices.
mhm,
Like, you can't call in an employee and reprimand them all the time, like one on one, without like HR being present, or,
mhm,
like some common courtesy, or like give somebody like a written warning before you fire them,
mhm,
or like all this stuff. And it even gets worse and worse. Like, you go down the trail, like one on one, especially with like mixed genders and stuff like this. Like, this would never
yeah,
fly in a business, like in a healthy, like office setting.
right.
And
So
it
it
should
shouldn't fly
be,
here.
yeah, it should be like, and who sees the money? Businesses don't work if, like, oh, there's only one person who actually knows how much money comes in and goes out. And it's like, don't worry about it. It's fine.
The Lord will provide.
Yeah.
He
And
provided manna, he'll provide money. They both start with M.
yeah, and it's like it's accountability, right? It's just like being transparent, and maybe it's just you as the owner and like an accountant or something like that, but like the church needs to function like that too. And then it also needs to be so much more because it's about people and it's
Yeah,
about ministry first, you know. So
yeah.
it's just like, but I think people see that and it's like it's just about people. So don't worry about the money. I'm like, but that's how we get in trouble because no one was watching the money.
Well, okay, so and this is like I'm really glad we're talking about this because it's an extremely controversial subject. And truthfully, I hope that this reaches everybody and the right people, right? Because it's something that needs to be talked about and opened up about. There's no guilt in paying attention to the money. Like that's actually a responsibility. And I feel like there's a certain amount of guilt and shame that comes along with the thought of, well, it's about the money. And
Yeah.
I was just talking to I wish I could remember who I was talking to. Um and it was so like, oh, I was talking somebody another business owner in the asphalt space had reached out to me and said, "Hey, I want to grow my business. Can I talk to you for a little bit?" And I said, "Sure." So I talked to him, and the thing was is like their thought was, "I want to grow. I want to do more. I want people to give. I want to give people more, but I have to pay attention to my own finances, and I can't give what I don't have." But I'm not trying to be greedy. And I'm like, he's like, it's not about the money. I'm not trying to be greedy, but like, I don't want to pay for something that isn't justified. And I'm like, dude, wherever you got this notion of feeling guilty for managing yourself responsibly in your finances, like, get rid of it. I
Yeah.
don't know who told you that,
I
but
think I think
go
there's a
ahead.
lot of self-worth issue in that. And
Yeah.
I did the same thing. I was like, it
Mm,
feels weird to be charged this much for something. And they're like,
yeah.
but what's the value? Like, even like with like Chat GPT, be like, what's the average cost of this in Michigan?
Yeah.
You know? And it's just like, it's as I mean, firstly, as a business owner, you know this, you have to charge with what it makes money for you. Cause A, you
Hmm.
also don't know how often your business is going to produce that. And so you need to
Yeah.
make money. And the same thing with the church. It's like we're commanded to take care of like widows and orphans. We're supposed to give back to the community.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, it's not about money, but it's like it needs to obviously pay for itself. But then
Yeah.
also when you're talking about numbers too, it's like, is it a victory if one person gets saved?
Hmm.
Yes.
Hmm.
Heavens, yes. Is it a bigger like is it more or is it, you know, if 100 people come to Christ, that's that's awesome. And same thing
Right.
with like a business. Closing one deal is amazing, closing 100 is better. And so it's
Right.
like it's not about the numbers because it's about one thing, but it's the same thing with business. Closing one good deal is awesome. That's what it's
Right.
all about. And hopefully you're
Right.
doing that a lot, you know?
Well, and
So
you can do more with more,
yeah.
and I think this is I feel for myself, I'm also willing to challenge things. So like, why don't we just say this? Why isn't it about the numbers? Why aren't we making sure that what we're doing is effective? Why aren't we tracking our progress and our responsibility and our efforts? Like, what's the goal? If the goal is to reach and impact people, then why are we not paying attention to our metrics?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, y- yes, the goal is not to gain money. That's where it comes in. Like, it's not about the money, but we can't do anything without the catalyst that allows us to make an effort, right? That's the exchange. Like, the goal is not to give it and keep it and put it in our pockets. The goal is to reach and impact people. Like, it's all as one. And so like we hear things out of the Bible, and I know this because we both grew up in the church, and it's like, well, tithing and giving your last two things to God and God will bless you, and look at Job, how there was so much suffering and all, like, and God will provide all this stuff, and the Israelites in the desert, and God gave them manna. And so for whatever reason, the narrative of suffering has been pushed more than the narrative of abundance. Like, God is a God of abundance. Like, we were created in the image of God. So understanding who God is and how he operates actually gives us more ability to not be ashamed of making sure that we're producing good fruits for our efforts, right? Like, and so I think that numbers should be more of the conversation. I think personally, give me your thoughts. If it's said that it's not about the money, then you're already making money too much of the conversation. The fact that you had to bring it up, that it's not about the money, means that you already have money as too much of this conversation. You know what I'm getting at?
Kinda.
So you've allowed money to take more, to hold up too much space in the narrative.
Are you talking about the
Because
church or with business?
in a general sense,
Okay.
in a general sense, when we focus on how much or how little money, we are now focusing on the money instead of the value.
Yeah.
Like, we say it's not about the money. That's not the goal. You have allowed money to take up more space in this conversation so far just by mentioning that it's not about it. You're actually making it more about the money than it should be. Because let's look at it this way. To somebody that money is no object, they don't care. What I want is somebody that I can trust. What I want is somebody that I believe in, that I believe in their cause. I have already sold myself on them. We just have to figure out exactly how much. Like, but I really don't care, So like, there's that aspect too. And I feel like it's one of those sneaky things that, like, if it's taking up too much time in the conversation, then it's already too much of the focus. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can see that. I think for me too, it's just like the conversation of like bringing it back to numbers. It's like it has to be, you have to care about numbers at the same time. Like
Mhm.
they say with podcasting, like if you're not growing, your podcast isn't good enough. So it's
Mm.
like make your podcast better. And it's like
That'll preach.
right. And so it's just like, how do we do that? When we say numbers, I'm like, if your ministry, the people you're witnessing to, I heard that a lot with like youth ministry. It's like, are you growing your ministry? And I think youth ministry is so different than it was for us. I mean, I talked to Emma. It's like, man, when me and you were in youth group together, it was
Mhm.
huge. And we'd go on retreats and everyone plus more would come. Like we'd
Mhm.
have like, I think we have a decent sized church, but we'd have like 120, like 130 high school students that went to like winter retreat. And that's
Yeah.
awesome, and I just
Oh,
don't think
dude,
you see those numbers anymore.
remember, they shipped us all to New York?
Yeah.
There was, like, from what I remember at that age, there's, like, thousands of kids.
Yeah, I mean, because we took 2 buses from our church, and so many churches did that. There was huge numbers. We have, like, teams, like, huge
Yeah.
teams, and, like, yeah.
I just
Uh,
remember being in an auditorium and there's, like, a sea of kids.
yeah,
Like, it wasn't like, "Hey, there's us and a couple other churches, and now we have a bigger group than normal." Like, no, there's an army here.
yeah.
And, yeah, I agree. It's not like it used to be. Mind you,
Mhm.
kudos to, who was it, Larry, who was the, youth pastor at that time?
Yeah,
So, kudos to Larry for being willing to take 2 buses of high school
right.
students to New York, because I don't know that I would want that level of responsibility
Yeah.
or tomfoolery.
Yeah. Oh, he would just go with it. And then I remember you brought extreme days and we subjected to our entire bus to extreme days. I remember I don't even remember who it was, but I remember this one girl distinctly being like, "What is this?"
I must have had way more influence than I thought
Oh yeah.
to
I think
be
we all
able.
did. I think me and you could go to Larry and be like, "Hey, let's play this movie." He's like, "All right, let's do it." Oh man. But so
Uh,
I think the numbers like that's a whole other conversation with like youth ministry. Like why is it so different than it was? I just think,
mm,
our area is different, youth ministry is different, but like I said too, as you're like having youth group, that was such a big conversation. It's like it's not about the numbers, but then at the same time, you want to see it grow. And it's that balance of if you care, we had 100 kids at youth group on Wednesday night. It's like,
yeah,
yay. But it's like, but that's just numbers. Like how many people were impacted or how many people like were introduced to Christ, how many people grew, how many people like
yeah,
gave up, struggles or, like things like that. And it's like it's gotta be a balance. You have to care about just the one because
mm,
everyone is important, but then you also have to care about the group because it's like, hey, if your ministry is losing people, then you have to look at, am I being effective or what am
mhm,
I doing? Things like that. So, I think it just has to be both. That's the problem with saying it's not about numbers, but at the same time, you go the other way, and if it's only about numbers, then you're not affecting anybody either.
right. I think that's why it's so important to have core values and a mission statement inside anybody's business. And I don't care how big you are. I'm working with a small business right now in Travers that they hired me to mentor them one on one for a month, and they're paying me for it. And the first thing is like, okay, I can't actually help you grow your business until we get very clearly defined core values and mission statement, right? Because this comes from like, what impact do you want to have on your community, on your employees, and on your customers? And that's like that those values are clearly defined and unique to each individual business. Not so that it, the reason it's for like so you know what to fall back on. Like, hey, when you get in those moments of, well, what is it about right now? You go back to your clear. It's like the 10 Commandments, right? Like, you kind of have to have the quote unquote 10 Commandments inside your business, and we label them as core values. Like, what is the purpose for what we're doing? Should we focus on the numbers? Should we focus on the mass or the 99 or the one? And that was um what season are we in, and how should we approach this? Well, what do our core values state of how we operate as a business? With whatever decision we make moving forward, do they align with our core values? Because sometimes we even have to be reminded of who we are and what we want to do and what we want to be when things get muddy,
Yeah.
right? Like, not having those things clearly defined, you need a reminder for yourself,
Mhm.
you know? What would you say, um I want to encourage the professional or the business owner from not feeling guilty about, sometimes it is about money, sometimes it is about the numbers. It's okay to want more.
Mhm.
It's okay to push. It's okay to hold the people around you to a higher level of accountability and standard, which might be foreign to them, which means that you have to put them under pressure for the sake of this whole thing growing, making more money, doing more good, impacting more people. What would you say from your experience between where you came from to where you are now that would help somebody not feel guilty about chasing that?
Mhm. I think know your value, know what you're worth and give people that. And, especially like this as well, the longer you do business, there are ups and downs. Like you're also preparing yourself for lows too. So like if you're like, oh, I don't need this much money, it's like, well, that's a great time to put that aside, invest that back into the business, put it in a winter fund, for both me and you and stuff. So
Mhm.
um and yeah, know your value. And if at the end of the day you're like, I have way more money than I need, then give it away. That's a great time. Like start a charity or like get involved with things. Like what can I give my money to? Because I think, yeah, there is some weirdness of feeling guilt for pursuing more. But I
Mhm.
think your business, I mean, you'd speak better to this, but like it seems like your business is either growing or dying, right? So
Mhm.
it's like if it's growing and that gives you more opportunities to bless others. So like never be afraid of it. And if it's a guilt thing, if you're like, I have all that I need, I don't need any more, great. But keep growing the business because that's the healthy projection or, trajectory for your business. But then
Yeah.
get ready for charity, get ready to give it away.
So if I were to role play a response, but Heath, like how do I know if God's okay with that?
How do you know he's not okay with that?
Mm. I mean,
I mean, okay,
sometimes simple
let's
answer though.
yeah. But I mean, I think it's very evident from scripture, like Peter, the guy who was like the head of the church, after Jesus ascended into heaven, he like clearly owned his own business. He was working all of the time. Like that's especially that time. It's not like you were just doing full-time ministry. It's like,
Mm,
oh yeah, I just walk around and preach. Like he still, Jesus was a carpenter. Like they had jobs, they had stuff they were doing. And obviously, like, if you're blessed to do whatever you can, but I just don't understand where that comes from. I think it's more of a self-worth thing than anything. I don't think anybody who is confident in who God made them feels guilty about their business doing well. Um,
mm.
and I just think,
So,
yeah, self-doubt.
well, essentially, like, don't worry so much about yourself and what you are doing wrong. Like, the simple answer to that is why don't you seek out God
Yeah. And I think
and
that's
get,
yeah, I think it's laziness, I think, to not push your business to grow because it has to grow. Like I said, it's growing or dying. So if
yeah,
you're not pursuing growth, then you're probably being like lazy in some areas that are
yeah,
probably going to start falling apart. But if you grow and if it's really like I don't need more money, well then set a goal for yourself. Like what's your year look like? Set that and then cut it off there and give back to your employees. We did
right.
really good this year. Here's a bonus, like there's so many
There,
options.
there's a book that I was referred to and then I listened to. It's a very short read. If you haven't read it or listened to it, I would highly recommend it. It's called Secrets of the Vine. And it's all about the pruning process and how you actually have to, the reason why a grapevine gets pruned, it's so that it can grow more.
Mhm.
And so when we look at the reference in the Bible of, he is the vine and we are the branches, the goal is to grow more. Like, I don't think there's ever, when you look and you truly seek out God, and then you look to understand, like, how does business and faith and everything work together? I don't know that there is an example that relates to God having his hand on something that the effort and effectiveness of that thing goes backwards. It only ever goes forward or grows or has ambition of more, better. I mean, like, even the difference between heaven and hell. The difference is you will benefit greater if you end up in heaven. It's okay to be selfish in that way. I want better for me. Like, that's okay.
Yeah.
And so I think if, you know, Satan is looked at as the it is described as a, master of deceit. Like, if we think that we can see him and we can identify him, like, we are already deceived. So where is we he doesn't need us to be 180 degrees running away from God. He just needs us to misunderstand God and what he's all about.
Well, I think we brought it up last time, screw tape letters, right?
Yeah.
The main thing that will deceive people is that there's no rush. It's like,
Mm.
should we tell them that there's no God? It's like, yeah, some will believe that,
Yeah.
but what if we tell them there's no rush to connect with God, to get your
Yeah.
heart right? It's like, perfect. I believe that. I'll get there, but
Yeah.
other stuff to do.
I struggle with not getting extremely frustrated when it comes to that topic. Like, there's no rush. There's no sense of urgency. No, there actually is. And it's a day-to-day thing. Like that's something that I have to almost daily check myself on, like, approach the situation appropriately and not overreact. Just because you have an understanding of something doesn't mean that everybody does.
Right.
But that doesn't give you an excuse to force them into this understanding.
Yeah.
So, well, any last words?
No, dude. Can I push a couple things real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. First thing to push, go check out Unfortunate Cookies, the podcast where we open fortune cookies, and that's it. Me and Kyle have a comedy podcast. Go check it out. It's fun. And then go check out episode 1 of In Bad Company, where I interview Kyle about business. And then also go check out the Your Feature Presentation podcast, the Extreme Days episode, where Kyle is once again on that podcast and we talk about extreme days. So that's my plug.
Sweet. Well, hey,
it's all your stuff.
I appreciate you and your conversation in this. Like,
yeah, you too, man.
It's refreshing, it's relieving, and I think it's truly gold that I wish more people would be privy to that information.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. All right. Heath, talk to you later.
See ya.